So welcome everybody to this latest video 162 Maths, and in this video we'll be going over the GCSE Maths paper of June 2022, Foundation, Paper 2, which is a calculator paper. Now as always I'll include a question breakdown in the description below so you can see which question refers to which topic. So let's get started on this June 2022 Foundation Paper 2, which is a calculator paper. So looking at question 1, it says here is a number line and it says which number is A. Well, A is in between 1 and 2, and which of these four numbers is in between 1 and 2? Well, it's going to be 1.5. Then for question 2, it says here is an expression 5a plus 7b plus 9c, and the question is asking which is the second term. Well, our first term is 5a and our second term is 7b. Then for question 3, it says how many hours are there in 5 days? So for this, all we need to do is just do 5 times 24, because there's 24 hours in a day, and that gives me an answer of 120. Then for question 4, it says which of these parts of a circle is a curve, and the correct answer is going to be the circumference. Then for 5a, it says what is 1 4/9 as an improper fraction? So for this, what we need to do is multiply the big number by the bottom number, so that's 1 times 9, and then we add it to the top number and we divide by the original denominator, which is 9. So 1 times 9 is 9, plus 4 is 13, and so it's going to be 13 over 9. Then for question 5b, it says convert 7/16 into a decimal. Well, again, all I need to do is remembering that this is on a calculator paper, so we just do 7 divided by 16, and that gives me an answer of 0.4375. Then for question C, it says round 2.84 to 1 decimal place, and that gives me 2.8. Now moving on to question 6, it says that a machine to clean carpets can be hired, and we've got the machine hire price per day, and we've got the cleaning fluid. It says Rana wants to hire the machine for 1 day and buy 5 litres of cleaning fluid. Work out the smallest amount that she could pay. So the total amount is going to be the day price, which is £25, plus, now looking at how we can buy 5 litres of fluid, well, I can either buy 5 lots of 1 litre, or 3 lots of 1 litre and 1 2 litre, or I could buy 2 litres and 1 litre. Now, seeing as the price of 2 litres is better value for money, the best combo is going to be 2 lots of 2 litres plus a 1 litre bottle. So then working out the cost of that, so that's going to be 25 plus 2 times 18 plus 10, which gives me 36 plus 10. And I could have just done this straight into the calculator, in which I've got 25 plus 36 plus 10, which gives me a final total of £71. Then moving on to question 7, it says that we've got a quadrilateral ABCD, and it says that the angle of ABC is 90 degrees, BC is 4 centimetres, CD is parallel to BA, and CD is equal to 6 centimetres. Draw ABCD on the centimetre grid, and AB has been drawn for us. So first of all, we know that the angle ABC is 90 degrees. Now, because the middle letter is B, that means that at B it's going to be 90. So what I then need to do is to draw a vertical line of 90 degrees there. Now you can either use the grid, you wouldn't necessarily need to use your protractor, because you can assume that those squares are going to be at right angle. Now we know that the length of this line, so C is somewhere along this pink line, so we then need to mark that C is 4 centimetres. So if we count 4 squares, then this is where C is going to be. Now in terms of where D is, well, we know that the line CD is parallel, so that means that a parallel line to AB that goes through C is going to be somewhere along that green line. And we know that CD, the distance is 6 centimetres. So if I count 6 centimetres or 6 squares from C, I get that D is going to be at this point here, and then all that's left for me to do is to join a line from A to D. And there we go. Now, one thing you might want to do is you may want to rub out this line here, or you could leave it, but that's absolutely fine. But if you have left it, make sure that you have highlighted where D is, because that's going to be vital for those 3 marks. Then moving on to question 8, it says that the mass of some puppies were recorded. The smallest mass was 7 kilograms and 200 grams, and the range of the masses was 650. What is the largest mass? Give your answer in kilograms and mass. So here, if we've got the smallest amount and we've got the largest amount, then the range is going to be the number that we need to add the smallest to get the largest. So therefore, if I do 7 kilograms and 200 grams plus 650 grams, then I'm going to get 7 kilograms and 850 grams. So the answer then is 7 and 850. Then moving on to question 9, it says Ali revises each day for 5 days. On each day, each of the first 4 days, he revises from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. On the 5th day, he starts revising at 1 p.m. He finishes when he has revised for a total of 18 hours for the 5 days. What time does he finish on the 5th day? So first of all, let's have a look at the total revision time for the 4 days. And so we can see that the time difference between 5 to 8 is 3 hours. So it's going to be 4 times 3, which is 12 hours. Now it says that he revises for a total of 18. So the revision time on the last day, or the 5th day I should say, that's right, 5th day, equals 18 minus 12, which is 6 hours. So then if he starts revising at 1 p.m. plus 6 hours, then he's going to finish at 7 p.m. Or you could write in a 12-hour clock of 1900. So then moving on to 9b, it says Sophia is revising for maths. She tries to work out 3 times bracket 4 plus 2 close bracket. Here is her working, and it says what mistake has she made? Now for the 1 mark, there are several ways in which you can write this, but basically you want to state that Sophia hasn't correctly used BIDMAS or BODMAS, whichever is your preference. She multiplied before using the brackets. You could say something along the lines of that she needs to do the brackets first. And you could also say, where's the mistake? Well, basically it's doing that. So here she's done 3 times 4 plus 2 equals 3 times 6, which is 18. So something along those lines would be good enough to get the mark. Then moving on to question 10, it says lines A and B are shown, and for part A it says write down the coordinates of C. So for C we've got to go using the X ordinate first, that's 8, and then the Y ordinate, which is 1. We then move on to question 10b, which says write down the coordinates of the midpoint of AB. Well, the midpoint of AB is this point here, so going across the X values first, that's 7, and it's going to be 7, 6. Then for 10c, it says D is the point on the grid that makes ABCD a parallelogram. Work out the coordinates of D. So if we go back to this, we can see that the distance from A to B is 6 squares. So if you count 6 squares going to the left from C, we can spot that this is where D is going to be, and the coordinates of that is 2, 1. It then says for part D, write down the equations of the line passing through A and B. So this line here is a horizontal line rather, and that cuts through 6. So the equation of the line AB is going to be y equals 6. So then moving on to question 11, it says Nihal has savings of £168. He uses 5/7 of his savings to buy sports equipment. Assume that he will use a third of the rest of the money to buy a shirt. How much of his savings in pounds does he have left? So let's first of all work out how much he spends on the sports equipment. And that is going to be 5/7. Now, of means times, so I do times 168, and that gives me an answer of £120. Now, the amount that he has left is going to be 168 minus 120, so he's got £48 left. Now, of that, the amount for the shirt is going to be a third of £48. And so that's going to be 48 divided by 3. And if I type that into my calculator, again, answer of 16. So then how much money does he have left? Well, he spent a total, so the amount left is going to be 168 minus 120 minus 16, and 168 minus 120 minus 16 gives me an answer of £32. Then moving on to 11b, it says in fact he uses more than a third of the rest of his money to buy a shirt. What does this tell you about how much of his savings he has left? Tick one box. Well, if he's spending more on the shirt, then obviously he's going to have less savings. So then what we then need to tick is our third option, which is going to be less than the answer in part A. Then moving on to question 12, it says that Sue is working with 2-digit numbers. She multiplies the digits together to get an answer. So for example, for 63, she multiplies 6 by 3. So 63 gives an answer of 18. Write down a different 2-digit number that gives an answer of 18. So for this, you could give a number of different answers, but the possible answer you could give are going to be 36 or 29 or 92. So any of those three options would be absolutely fine. For question 12b, it says write down a 2-digit number that gives an answer of 0. So basically what you could have is any number or any 2-digit number with a 0. So for example, you could have 20, you could have 40, could also have 06, as it has asked for a 2-digit number. That is still a number, but I personally wouldn't run the risk of 06. I would go for a number that ends in a 0. Then for question 12c, it says write down a 2-digit number that gives an answer that is greater than 70. So for this, you could give any of these three possible answers. So you could either have 89 or 98 or 99. So any of those three would be absolutely fine. But for all these questions, you only want to give one number, not all of them. So just be mindful of that, because you would lose marks if you did give extra answers. Moving on to question 13, it says that Steve and Molly each buy 480 tea bags. And we've got our two combinations. Steve buys only small packs and Molly buys only large packs. In total, how much more than Molly does Steve pay? So let's first of all work out what Steve pays. So he wants 480 and it comes in packs of 80. So if we divide that by 80, I get that he's going to need 6 packs. So the price of that is going to be 6 times £1.90, and that comes up to a total of £11.40. Then for Molly, we go for 480 divided by 160, and that comes up to a total of 3 packs, and the price of 3 packs is going to be 3 times £3.25, which comes up to a total of £9.75. So then the difference is going to be £11.40 minus £9.75, which comes up as £1.65. So then moving on to question 14, it says match each expression on the left with one on the right. The first one has been done for us. So for this the next one is going to be a plus and then 3 times 2, which is 6, and that's our first one. Then for the second one, we've got a times 3 times 2, so we just multiply all of them together and we get 6a, so that's going to be this one here. And then for this one, we've got a times 3 plus 2, so that's 3a plus 2, which is that option there. Now moving on to question 15, it says the scale drawing shows a tree and a student. The actual height of the tree is 4.2 meters. Work out the actual height of the student. So here we know that 4.2 meters equals 7 centimeters. So if I then want to work out what 1 centimeter is, I then need to divide this by 7. So if I then do 4.2 divided by 7, that equals 0.6 meters. And then I want 2.5 centimeters, so I need to multiply this by 2.5. So then I need to multiply this number also by 2.5. So 0.6 times 2.5 gives me an answer of 1.5 meters. So the answer then is 1.5. Then moving on to question 6, and let me just zoom out a little bit so we can see it all. It says 60 people were asked if they would vote in an election. A quarter of the people said no, 20 people said yes, and the rest said maybe. It says draw and label the pie chart to show this information. So looking at no, we know that's a quarter. So a quarter of the circle equals 90 degrees. So if I then use my protractor or a ruler or whatever you've got to measure your angles, then again you just got to make sure that that is 90, and I would say that just about looks a little bit wonky, and so I'd say that's pretty much it. So this angle here is 90 degrees, and that is no. Then we need to work out the angle for yes. So that's going to be 20 over the total frequency, which is 60, multiplied by 360. And if I type that into my calculator, I get an answer of 120 degrees. So then what I then need to do is measure 120 degrees. And again, doing that on here is going to be very, very difficult. And again, you want to make sure you are using a ruler. But this angle here is 120, and that's going to be yes. And if you want to check to make sure this is correct, so if you measure this angle, that should be 150, and that is going to be maybe. Alternatively, what you could do is you could do a key, or you could shade in the areas, but do make sure, and you can also label outside, but just make sure that you have labeled, like for example, you could have yes and have a line going through to each section rather. But it's entirely up to you in terms of this. But you need to make sure the angles are correct and accurate, and that you've labelled each of the sections either with a key or by just good old-fashioned labelling. Then moving on to question 17, it says that x is at least 7, circle the correct inequality. Well, at least 7 means that the smallest x can be is going to be 7, so x has got to be bigger or equal to 7, and that is the fourth option. Then for question 17b, we want to multiply out. So here we multiply numbers with numbers, letters with letters. So 5 times 2 is 10, c times d is cd, plus, and then 5 times 1 is 5, and I've got a c. For question 17, it says factorise 21x plus 28. Well, the biggest factor of those two numbers is 7. So 7 times what gives you 21? That's going to be 3, so I need 3x, and plus, how many 7's going to 28? Well, that's going to be 4. Now moving on to question 18a, it says the people at a party are either adults or children. The ratio of adults to children is 9 to 11. What percentage are adults? So first things first, what we need to do is write this as a fraction. So there are 9 adults out of the total number of parts, which is 20. And if I multiply that by 100, I get an answer of 45%. Then for 18b, it says the people at a different party are from Spain, France or Germany. 68% are from Spain. The number for France equals the same number as the number from Germany. Work out the number from Spain to the number of France as a ratio, and you want to give our answer in the form of n to 1. So first things first, we know that there are 68% in Spain, which means that there are 100 take away 68, which is 32% left. Now if we split this, divide that by 2, then we get the percentage of France, which is going to be equal to 16%, and the percentage of Germany, which is also 16%. Now for this, we then want to write the ratio of Spain to France. So Spain is 68%, and we've got the French percentage, which is 16. And then all that's left for me to do is to simplify this ratio, so I can divide both numbers by 4, in which then, now there is a feature on your calculator where you can simplify ratios, but if you're not sure how to do ratios, especially on a calculator paper, just simply write it as a fraction, press equals, and it will tell you what it is. So it's 17 to 4. Then I want to make the second number equal to 1. So I need to divide by 4. So I need to divide 17 by 4. And 17 divided by 4 gives me an answer of 4.25. So the answer then is 4.25. Then moving on to question 19, it says circle the point that is on the line of 4x plus y equals 7. So here what I want to do is substitute x equals 2 and x equals the y ordinate and see if the answer is 7. So here 4 times 2 is 8 plus 1 is not equal to 7. 4 times 2, which is 8, plus minus 1, that's going to be 8 minus 1, which is 7. So that is the correct answer. Then for 19b, it says write down the coordinates of the y-intercept of the line y equals 3x plus 8. Well, the y-intercept is 8, and when it crosses the y-axis, the x-ordinate is going to be 0. It then says work out the gradient of the line of this. So in order to work out the gradient, we need to make y the subject. So I need to take the 2 over to the other side by dividing by 2. So I get y equals 10 divided by 2x, which is y equals 5x. So the gradient then is 5. Then moving on to question 20, it says that Jose and Maria each take a test. The probability that Jose passes is 0.8 and the probability that Maria passes is 0.4. Complete the tree diagram. So again, we need to make sure that each branch adds up to 1. So 1 take away 0.8 is 0.2. 1 take away 0.4 is 0.6, and the probability of Maria passing is 0.4, and the probability of her failing is 0.6. It then says work out the probability that they both pass. Well, they both pass. Well, the probability of Jose passing is 0.8. Now, and in probability means times, and the probability of Maria passing is 0.4. So 0.8 times 0.4 on your calculator is 0.32. Now moving on to question 21, it says that show that 2125 can be written as a cube number multiplied by a prime number between 10 and 20. Now for this question, if I just get the calculator back up. Now if you've got the Casio calculator, you can enter 2125, press equals, and then use the fact button by pressing shift and this button here. And you can see that 2125 equals 5 cubed times, I think it was 17. Yes, it was. So we've got 17. So here we've got 125 times 17. So 125 is a cube number, as it's 5 cubed. And 17 is a prime number between 10 and 20. And there you go. Now, another alternative, you may ask, well, how could I have done this without using the calculator if I didn't have a Gcse calculator that has that product of their prime feature? Well, if we start by thinking of the prime numbers between 10 and 100, so it's going to be 11, 13, 17 and 19. Then if you do 2125 divided by 11, well, that doesn't give me a nice number. 2125 divided by 13, if I just type that into my calculator now, 2125 divided by 11 doesn't give me a nice number. 2125 divided by 13 doesn't give me a nice number. 2125 divided by 17 does give me 125. So that doesn't, I've messed that up. So 2125 divided by 17 equals 125. Let me just get rid of that evidence. There we go. And this is a prime number, and this is our cube number. Then moving on to question 22, it says that a school play takes place each day from Monday to Friday. Here are the attendances on 4 of the days. For all 5 days, the mean attendance is 90. Work out the attendance on Friday. Well, as we don't know what Friday attendance was, so let's just start by calling that X. Now, to work out the mean of those 5 days, what I need to do is add the numbers together. So I've got 72 plus 83 plus 88 plus 97 plus X. I divide that by all by 5, and that comes up to my mean value, which is 90. Now, if I just neaten this up, then what I find is that by adding all of those numbers up, I get an answer of 340. So X plus 340. Now, if I take the 5 over to the other side by multiplying by 5, I'll end up with an answer of 450. And then all that's left for me to do is take away 340, and that gives me an answer of 110. Then moving on to question 23, it says that Sam types at a constant number of words per minute. He takes 8 minutes to type a report of 416 words. How long does it take him to type an essay of 1,534 words? Give your answer in minutes and seconds. So for this, because we want the words, and that's the units that we're going to go for, so we do here 8 divided by 416 to see how many words he's typing how long it takes to write one word. And then if I multiply that by 1,534, it comes up to an answer of 29.5 minutes. Now that is 29.5 minutes, and that in minutes and seconds is 29 minutes and 30 seconds. Then moving on to question 24, it says that 4y equals 5x, and it says which of these statements is correct. So for this, if we now for the first two, what we need to do is we need to make y the subject. So for this, if we make y the subject for these here, then we end up with y equals 5 over 4x, and 5 over 4 is 1.25. So is y 80% of x? No, it isn't, so that's not going to be correct. Is y 125% of x? Well, 1.25 is 125, so the correct answer is going to be the second option. One box. Then for question 25, it says that Rosie makes phone calls to try and sell broadband. Today she made 120 calls, and the table shows the results. And the question is asking us to write down the relative frequency that a call was not answered. So relative frequency is the number of times something happened over the total number of times it could have happened, which is 120. And I just need to check if that simplifies. So if I type that into my calculator, it does simplify to give me 11 over 40. But you could also give relative frequency as a decimal, so it's 0.275. So any of those three answers would be good enough for the single mark. Then moving on to question 25b, it says during the rest of the week, Rosie will make 500 calls. Using the results in the table, how many sales does she expect to make during the rest of the week? Well, looking at the relative frequency of the sales that she made, well, there were 6 out of 120. So if we look at 6 over 120 and then we multiply that by the total number of trials, which is 500, and if I type that straight into my calculator, I get an answer of 25. Then moving on to question 26, it says Harry and Ellie each bought a printer and a hard drive. Here are some of the information about how much they paid. Ellie says that in total, I paid more than Harry because 20% is greater than 10%. Is she correct? Tick a box. Show the calculations to support your answer. So in terms of Harry, let's first of all work out how much he spent. Well, the printer was £80 and the hard drive was £25. That comes up to a total of £105. Now, in terms of Ellie, well, she paid 10% less than Harry, so 80, and we can then work out 10% of 80. So 10% of 80 equals 8. So 80 minus 8 equals £72 for the printer, plus, and then 20% of 25, well 10% is 2.5, so then 20% is going to equal 5, so that's going to be 25 plus 5, which is £30. So if we then add those up, we get that Ellie paid a total of £102. So did Ellie pay more? The answer is no. And you could say something along the lines of that Ellie paid £3 less than Harry. Then moving on to question 27, it says that a shape is made by joining a right angle triangle to a rectangle. Work out the area of the shape. So first things first, we can work out the area of the triangle by doing the base times the height divided by 2. So that's 30 times 16 divided by 2. And if I type that all into my calculator, I get an answer of 240. Now the next thing that's left for me to do is then work out what this length here is, so I can work out the area of the rectangle. Now for x, if I just take that triangle out, then I get this is 30, this is 16, and this is x. Then using Pythagoras, I get x squared equals 16 squared plus 30 squared. So x squared equals, and it's 1156. So x equals the square root of 1156. So x equals 34. So I can then write this as 34. So then the area of the rectangle is going to be 34 times 52, which comes up to a total of 1768. So that means that the area of the shape is going to be where I add those two amounts up. So 240 plus 1768, so 240 plus 1768, and that comes up to a total of 2008, and it's going to be in centimetres squared. Then moving on to question 28, which is our last question. It says solve this double-sided equation. So the first we need to do is expand the brackets. So we get 10x minus 5 equals 6x plus 9. Then I want to take away the smallest x's from both sides. So if I take away 6x from both sides, I end up with 4x minus 5 equals 9. I then take the 5 over to the other side, so I get 4x equals 14. I then divide by 4. So x equals 14 divided by 4, which is 3.5. And that is the last question on this paper.